Welcome back. The Sweet 16 is set in North Dakota high school football, and only half of those teams will get to play on the Fargo Dome turf a week from Friday in the 25th annual Dakota Bowl. So to get you set for this weekend's semifinal contest, we toss it over to Jody Norstedt, who's joined once again by his expert panel. Jody?
Thanks, Kelly. We use that experts term around here loosely. You guys deserve it, though. Chase picked 12 of 14 winners correctly last week. Brad got 11, and I finished with 10. Last place. I have some catching up to do. He's Brad Anderson. This is Chase Miller, both from 740 The Fan. Guys, let's get right to it. Let's chat 3A semifinals. Minot pulled the upset over Cheyenne last week, scored 66 points. Century needed that last-second field goal to beat Davies. Are we in for a close one here, Brad?
I think it's going to be closer. I mean, I know Century really manhandled them the first time they played, but I think it's going to be a lot closer. I think Minot comes in with a lot of confidence. You're hanging 66 on anybody this time of year. That's a big thing, and they came up with some big plays on defense. They got that pick six that went for a score as well. And Century, to their credit, I mean, they're very disciplined, and they've been in this situation. They know, say they're kind of the hunted now. Minot's, I think, coming in with a lot more confidence than they did the first time around.
Speaking of a team that's hunted, Chase, any chance Bismarck can stun West Fargo? The Packers really handled them in the regular season, 41-0.
If you take a look at the first game, you would say 41-0, right?
Yeah.
So the box score speaks for itself. But if you talk with both coaches, it's, well, there's a couple of turnovers. Maybe West Fargo had better field position to take advantage. Andy Gravdahl right now is throwing 64% for completion percentage, almost 2,000 passing yards on the season. Andy Gravdahl's been a load, but it's the Masambucos, the Franics, the Luke Lennons that have over 40-plus tackles for the Packers defense. If you're Bismarck, you have to get West Fargo on their heels early because they came out 14-0 just like that on Bismarck Legacy in the first 2 minutes of the game.
Absolutely dominant. They have been all year. In 2A Shanley, they're well rested. The Deacons beat Watford City 25-0 in the regular season, but the Wolves have won 7 in a row. Can they keep pace with the Deacons?
I think they can. It's 6-3, against Jamestown. And Watford City, they only give up 16 points per game. So defensively, it's where they're going to hang their hat on. They got a guy by the name of Hogue who has 88.5 tackles on the season. Their linebacker, Ewing, has 50 tackles on the season. They're going to try to create as many turnovers as possible. And the first time they played Shanley, it was a close ball game, 25-0 up in Watford City. The Deacons lost their starting quarterback, and all of a sudden runs in Cade Busick, who has done nothing but wonders for that Deacons offense. 12 passing touchdowns, 1,000 yards through the air, 0 interceptions. I think this one could be similar to the Jamestown game where first one to double figures might be the one that comes out with the win.
Brad, how about the St. Mary's Devils Lake matchup? What do you see happening there?
Devils Lake, I know the first time around St. Mary's really handled them pretty well. Devils Lake played really well with Hornstein, the running back, had a really big game against Wahpeton. They took advantage. Wahpeton was really beat up in that game, and Dikey got hurt, which certainly was a factor. But I think they've got to control things early on. I think they've got to establish things with that ground game with Hornstein right away to have a chance against St. Mary's.
Well, I really like the matchups in Class A, so let's talk about those. Trinity's defense has been lights out. They just destroyed DeLax Burlington, 40-0 in the quarters. Now the Titans get to try to defend Grand Skager in the Hillsboro Central Valley offense. What's your key in this one, Chase?
I think it's Skager left, Skager right, and Skager up the middle. 38 rushes for 244 yards and 4 touchdowns in their quarterfinal round win against Carrington. My thing is Dickinson Trinity. They led 26-0 at the half against DeLax Burlington. They've had 6 shutouts so far this season. They don't give up a lot of points, but I like how we got all the seeds still left in Class A.
Brad, that Velva versus Langdon Edmore Munich game, battle of unbeatens. Who's going to get that first loss?
I'm sticking with Langdon. I've kind of rode that horse a long time. So I was watching the highlights of we talked about Delvo and economy, but Tetro, the fullback, man, he's a load. And I think that could be, depending on the weather, and I think that that's another factor as well. We kind of talked about the balance, of Shanley's offense. It's the same way as well. If the passing game doesn't work with Delvo, and he can move with his legs and he can create plays if he needs to, but you need to go to that ground game. That's a nice option to have.
Boy, that could be a nightmare for a lot of teams. No one has that match for that physicality. I think it's 5'10", 220, 230 that he is. So he's a scary guy. Finally tonight, man, I think we've all been looking forward to the potential of this matchup. Finally, we get to see a Cavalier against Wyndmere-Lidgerwood. The top-ranked Tornadoes had to rally from behind to beat Napoleon. Who do you give the edge to in this matchup, Brad?
Man, I probably go Cavalier, maybe just the home field advantage. They always say it's maybe worth, maybe 3 points, maybe a touchdown, that type of thing. But the thing with Wyndmere-Lidgerwood is we'll see is Wyatt Harless can make plays if he has to, but he hasn't had to be he's been able to distribute things well to guys like Churchill, to the Vasquez brothers on the outside. And they have so many weapons that can beat you. Furch is another guy but if he needs to make a play, will he have to make a play, and can he make a play? I think he can. For Cavalier, everything's kind of predicated around Urlaub and their tailback as well.
The Shiloh-New Salem-Glen Allen game is a rematch from the final week of the regular season. We talked about this one last week. The Holsteins won at Miller Field, 36-34 in a thriller. Will they punch their ticket back to the Dakota Bowl this year?
You know, you take a look at the Shiloh Christian, Jaden Mitzel is going to have to be the playmaker for them. They got some other guys, but he's going to be the one to have to distribute, very similar to Hankey, for New Salem Glen Allen. I think it's going to be a carbon copy of the regular season. It might be who has the football last, and we'll see how many points they can possibly put up on these two teams. We said it going into it, this would be a fun semifinal rematch to have between these two teams.
It's going to be a lot of fun. This Friday and Saturday, it is semifinal week. We have the Dakota Bowl next week, guys. Thanks for doing this again. Next week, we get to break down the championships.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Jody.
Kelly, we'll see you then.
All right, thanks, Jody. Coming up after the break, we're into the semifinals here in the South Dakota High School football playoffs. Jason Andair has Brian Henschen and Craig Maddock in studio to make their picks for the games this week. Stay right here.